Resolve color management is that big scary monster that nobody wanted to with. But that all changes with Resolve 17. And to top it all off, Blackmagic introduced their own color science that they're calling DaVinci Wide Gamut. Check this out. All right, so this chart came straight from DaVinci Resolve's user guide. Let's go through some of the color spaces that we are already familiar with. I'm going to start off with the narrowest to the widest. Okay, so we have Rec. 709, which is this dark triangle right here on the color spectrum. Then we move on to our P3 color space, which is right here. And you're probably familiar with it, whether you have an iMac, MacBook Pro, iPhone, or iPad. They all use P3 color space. Then we move on to our golden standard when it comes to HDR Rec. 2020, which is this white triangle right here, pretty wide. And then we move on to ASUS, and it is just a bit wider than Rec. 2020. And then we move on to our RE Wide Gamut, and just look at it, how freaking ginormous that thing is. It still doesn't even come close to DaVinci's own Wide Gamut, which is this black triangle. Just look at it. It comfortably covers every other color space and then some. Forget about this boring chart. Let me try to explain it to you in a much more entertaining way. I came up with this analogy this morning. I was super pumped. It's either going to be the smartest thing you ever heard or the dumbest thing you ever heard. You be the judge, but hear me out. So the difference between working in a Rec. 709 color space to a DaVinci Wide Gamut. Rec. 709 color space is like getting pre-taxed. You get your paycheck, taxes are already taken out. Whereas working in a DaVinci Wide Gamut is like sending in your invoice, getting paid that exact number, then you pay your taxes at the end. So what's the difference? You're paying taxes either way. There's a huge difference. In the second scenario, you get access to all the money up front that you can reinvest, unlike scenario number one, where it is much more restricted. Same goes for the color space inside DaVinci Resolve. If you're shooting something on, say, Alexa, you got 15 stops of dynamic range, you're funneling it through Rec. 709 pre-tax, where it's much more limited, whereas if you funnel it through DaVinci Wide Gamut, the possibilities are endless. I don't know, I just made that shit up. Back to the video. Up until Resolve 16, every grading tool inside Resolve was meant to work in a Rec. 709 color space. That's why when somebody would use ASUS, they would have all these workarounds. They would have like their IDT and ODT set as ASUS, and then everything else in between is set to Rec. 709, so all the tools behave properly. But that's not the case anymore. Resolve 17 has color space aware grading tools, meaning regardless of the color space you're in, everything is going to behave similarly. This will make much more sense when we get to the tutorial section, but if you don't know the difference between parallel mixer and layer mixer, or not sure when to use which, you came to the right place. In this free training, you're not only going to learn everything about nodes, you will also learn to build the perfect node tree regardless of the project that you're working on. I will end the session with an extended Q&A. These questions came from you guys. Click the link in the description to sign up for this free training. I'm genuinely so excited about this brand new training. And guys, if you're enjoying the content, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness. Do not forget to follow me on Instagram. Let's roll the intro. So when you're inside your project, go ahead, click on this guy. This little icon is for your project settings, and under color management, you're gonna see DaVinci YRGB and Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. This is your default settings. Basically, what it's saying is that your color space or color science is set to Rec. 709, and then your output is going to be Rec. 709. So if we go back to this chart, it goes back to this, okay? So we're working in Rec. 709. We're going to be spitting out a Rec. 709 image. Now, let's bring in a few different clips, okay? So these are shot with different cameras. This one is Canon C500 Mark II in 422 10-bit. This one is shot on Pocket 6K Blackmagic RAW. We got Alexa Mini ProRes 422 HQ. We got Red Dragon 5K in R3D. So this is what we got going on. I'm going to go ahead and bring these clips into my timeline. So they're in here. And if I go to my color page, you can see that this is in C-Log 2. This is pretty flat. I mean, look at the scopes, and that just tells the story. Look at the Alexa footage, same thing, pretty flat. Look at the Blackmagic RAW footage, pretty flat. The only one that's not necessarily flat and is in Rec. 709 is the red footage because it is referring to the project settings, and that's how by default it's set up. So usually what you would do in a situation like this is that one, you can just go ahead and grade it using your primaries, or if you're running and gunning, let's go to our Alexa clip. Now these LUTs are provided by DaVinci Resolve. I can double click on it and boom, this is my Alexa LUT, and then this will give me a starting point and then I can go from there. Or I can do it a color space transform way. I can click on this guy and say, hey, give me my Canon Cinema Gamut for input color space and input gamma, give me a C-Log2, and boom, right there. If I go before and after, you can see we went from flat and we converted it to Rec 709. So these are two ways to go about converting your image into a Rec 709 color space and then start grading. But let's not forget that we're restricting ourselves to what we can achieve compared to when we get into the DaVinci Wide Gamut. So let's go ahead, reset this and reset this clip as well. I'm going to go back to my edit page. All right, so now let's click on our project settings again. And this time what we're going to do is select this and choose DaVinci YRGB Color Managed. And it gives you a bunch of presets, and we're not going to do anything custom in this video. We're just going to stick with the presets. And the one that I'm going to pick is DaVinci Wide Gamut. Okay, and let's read the description. An extra wide gamut log grading environment suitable for SDR and HDR deliverables, preserves maximum image fidelity and highlight detail up to 10,000 nits. So basically you're future-proofing yourself if you're working in this color space. Then a very important thing right here, our output color space or ODT is still set to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, meaning I'm going to take advantage of, let's go back to our picture. I'm going to take advantage of all of this color space when I'm in my timeline, but when I output, I'm going to output for sRGB, for web, and for broadcast. Now you can obviously always change this to whatever you want. If you want to export a for Netflix or something like that, you can just select one of these options. This is going to be your option for Netflix, and you can just go from there. But we're going to live in our Rec 709 because let's say I'm going to be exporting this video for YouTube and I still want it in sRGB or Rec 709 color space. So that's all you need to know about Resolve Color Management to get going. Now let's go ahead and hit save and look what happens. As soon as I hit save, it converts my image into a proper Rec 709 environment without me doing anything. And that's the beauty of Resolve Color Management. And it does the same thing for this clip right here. So it went ahead and did exactly the same thing. Let's chop this up. This is the only one that didn't convert. And that's because if you're working with footage that is not raw, it's not always going to know to convert it. In this case, the metadata came in. It knew that it was shot on Alexa Mini, so it converted it. But for Canon, it did not. So what you need to do is you need to go to your media page. And on this level, you have to select that Canon shot, right click, and just under input color space, go ahead and select Canon Cinema Gamut, Canon Log 2, done. Okay, so now the proper conversion happened just by clicking that one button and we are ready to go. We can right click and update our thumbnail so everything looks clean. And now we are ready to go, ready to color and take advantage of all that color space. Basically, imagine this, right? We're using RE footage, which is this blue triangle inside the DaVinci Wide Gamut, instead of like taking this RE Wide Gamut and cramming it in a Rec 709 timeline color space. To really give you an idea of how wide this color space is, keep your eyes right here, okay? And let's look at where our oranges are sitting. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, about 3 lines, a little past 3 lines, right? That's where our oranges are sitting. We are in DaVinci Wide Gamut, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in here to my project settings. I'm gonna switch it back to DaVinci YRGB, Rec 709 2.4, and this is where we're at. Let's do it again. I'm gonna drop in my color space, transform, and this is our Rec. 709. Look at what happened. Look at how different it looks compared to the DaVinci Wide Gamut. This is basically just telling us that, hey, I'm maxed out. You can't really do anything with me right now. Like, this is the most this image can be pushed. That's it. So just check this out. Now keep your eyes here. Let me go back. So let's reset this. Go back to our DaVinci Wide Gamut. And now I'm going to hit save and boom, look at this. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of what this actually means, like how it's eating every other color space alive. Like it's just all under this huge DaVinci Wide Gamut. Then at this point, what I would do with this particular shot is just give it a little bit of a contrast, not too much. And in this example, we're pretty much done. And once again, everything is controlled. Nothing is blown out. It's handling all these different colors in this shot so well. Let's move on to this particular shot. And I'm going to freeze it right here. So let's say this is our hero shot or hero frame. And this time we're just going to do, I think, maybe 4 or 5 nodes. And I'm going to go under my 4th node. I'm going to go under my 3rd node, and let's start off with contrast. So let's crank it a little bit. I'm going to keep it somewhere around here. Obviously, it looks too dark, so I'm going to go under my 2nd node and gamma up. Let the image breathe a little bit. Gain down. Gamma up. Gain down. So I'm going to keep it somewhere around here. I'm going to take my lift and like lift down a little bit, not too much. Something like that. I'm going to go to my node number 4. This is going to be our pop node. Let's go in here. Go to custom curves, make sure editable splines is turned on. Let's click on this guy. I'm going to raise it up. I'm not going to do too much with it because I want to kind of create like this film look. So I'm going to see, okay, maybe somewhere around here. Let's take the bottom. And again, going for that film look. So I'm not going to push it too much. Maybe something like that. If I do before and after, adds a really nice pop, looking good. And now let's go ahead and add our glow. And I'm going to go in here. We're going to change the composite type to soft light. And let's go to threshold, open it up all the way. And then in the spread, we are going to keep it somewhere around here. I'm going to open the global blend and let's just bring it to halfway point. And at that point, let's take the brightness, crank it up a little bit. I'm going to go back in my threshold and kind of tighten it up. And let's see. More brightness, something like that. And how are we looking? Okay, so let's go back into my curves and let me just grab this and see if I want to kind of pull this down. And then let's see the top. All right, maybe something like that. Now I'm going to go in my first node and let's add noise reduction because I don't know if you guys can see it on YouTube, but you will be able to notice the difference here. You see how thick this white color is right here? It's going to thin out quite a bit when we apply noise reduction. So let's do that. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to drop in about 3 frames. Let's go to 3. And then let's crank this up to about 11-ish. Because this is a pretty noisy shot. I'm going to break the link right here and go under my chroma and bring it up to around 7-ish. And if I do before and after, huge difference, okay? And again, look at this, how it's thinning out. That's how you know that it's working. Now let's move this over, or actually, you know what? Bring this down. I'm going to click right here, open another node, and then I'm going to create a layer mixer. And basically in the bottom one, I'm going to select his skin, and it's going to select all of this, okay? Because that's right next to the skin. So let's go ahead and control that. So I'm going to bring this, try to close it off and clean it up a little bit. And then let's close this up. And let's bring this in. And now let's just add denoise. And if I take the denoise up to about 10-ish, there's not going to be any chatter or anything like that. You guys are going to see, okay? So let's leave this as is. Let's go back up to 5. And here, I'm just gonna do my basic printer lights. So I'm gonna take my red lift and I'm gonna bring it down to kind of add that teal. Not too much though, because then it's gonna look unrealistic. So even something like this is looking, it's pretty dramatic, but it's looking pretty good. And I'm gonna take my blue gain and I'm gonna add some warmth in my highlights. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. Then I'm gonna take my red gain and I'm gonna add some red up there. Then I'm gonna go back into my red black right here, red lift, and I'm gonna keep adding that teal to like kind of create that color contrast. So if we go before and after, so you guys can see where we started to where we're ending up. And then if I just do before and after here, we're creating this like really dramatic look. And once again, like I said, it's going to hold up. There's not going to be any chatter. So you can see my key is holding up. It's looking clean. There's nothing wrong with it. And we were able to create this look. Now, guys, the beautiful thing about DaVinci's Wide Gamut is that look at the highlights. Look at the highlights here. Look at how it's holding up. Like this is where we started to this is where we ended up. This was shot in Blackmagic RAW at 3200 ISO on the Pocket 6K. It's not necessarily known for its great low light sensitivity, yet with a little bit of work, we were able to come away with the image like this. I mean, come on. Now, let's move on to this shot. Let's do something pretty basic with this shot. So I'm going to create 2 nodes. I'm going to click on this guy and click right here to do our proper white balance and boom. Like, I mean, everything is looking proper. The white balance is pretty much done. Now what we can do here is we can create some sort of a look. Like if we are going for, you know, let's go do temp and tint. So I can just add some warmth and then keep it somewhere around here, like just really warm it up. And now what I want to do is I'm going to create a layer mixer and I'm going to go under my qualifier. I'm going to be using Luma qualifier. I'm going to crank it up quite a bit. I'm going to hit Shift H so you can see what I'm selecting. And I'm going to go ahead and only select the highlights. And now if I turn this off, if I do on and off, so basically what am I doing? I'm keeping the same look, but I'm pulling out some of that dinge that's going into my highlights. Basically, look at the clean, crisp, specular highlights are now white. The wall in the back is white. The products are supposed to be white, and now they are. But we still have this essence of this look. So if I take these two and turn it on and off, we still have that look, but it's a sophisticated version of that look. And then that could be that for this particular one. And now if we go right here, once again, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Look at the specular highlights and how it's handling it. Again, we can see it here, how much room we have to mess around with all of these tones. This is something that does not happen when you're in Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4, okay? This is just making it look too easy. Now let's go over here in our red shot. Obviously, it's basically referring to the project settings, but one thing that I don't like is that how these highlights are super clipped. We can even see these flat lines right here. So in order to fix that, I can go click on clip. I can change the color science. Keep your eyes right here first and then right here. So if I click on this and hit IPP2, boom, it just opens it up, cleans it up so much. Even if you look at the scopes this time, I'm going to go back, legacy, and now I'm going to go back to IPP2, cleans it up so much. Now let's take it a step further. I'm going to go into my HDR palette and I'm just going to take my highlights. I'm going to crank them. And basically it's just opening up the image so much and adding this extra dynamic range. So look at the forehead specular highlights over there, or actually his head, not forehead. And like, look at the specular highlights right here. I mean, all these new tools in Resolve are just so practical, especially the HDR palette is so good. So guys, this is basically in a nutshell what DaVinci's Wide Gamut is and what to expect. I mean, this thing is an absolute beast. You saw what we were able to create and how fast we were able to do it. and just look at the range that we have to play with. Let me know if you guys want to see more stuff like this. Now, personally, I've been using DaVinci Wide Gamut since Resolve 17 dropped for my client work and for my personal work. I will highly recommend watching this video a couple of times just so everything kind of sinks in and you really understand how RCM works. Do not forget to check out the training. Link is in the description. If you're enjoying the content, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel for more awesomeness. I will see you guys in the next video.